Hey everyone, it's Dominic here from the Star Atlas team, ready to show you how to become a data runner in Sage Labs and start scanning for those SDUs. First things first, for the complete Sage Labs beginners, let's go over how to get started in Sage Labs. For those already familiar and just want to know how to scan effectively, go to this timestamp. Alright beginners, you're going to need 4 things. Number 1, ships to form a fleet and scan with. A quick tip here is data runner ships excel at scanning compared to other types of ships. Ships like the Visas Opod, the Thimble BYOS Ranger, and Opal Rayfam not only avoid food consumption while scanning, but also gather more SDUs in the process. Number 2, crew to add to your fleet. Spaceships don't run without a crew to man them. Number 3, food to scan and fuel to warp around the map. And number 4, Atlas or Solana coins to use for blockchain transaction fees. Now that you have what you need, let's get started by heading to base.staratlas.com and set up our profile. Choose your name and select your faction. Your faction will determine your starting location, the fleets you can rent, local economies, and more. By default, Atlas Prime will be enabled, which uses Atlas to pay for Solana transaction fees. If you'd like to disable it and use Solana instead, click the settings cog, manage section settings, and disable Atlas Prime. Now let's get started. First thing we'll need to do is import your ships, crew, and resources into the game via your faction's central space station. You can do that by clicking on your faction CSS and heading to the port of entry tab. Once there, import your desired assets. Now that your assets are in your faction CSS, we're ready to form our fleet. Click the Hangar tab and press Form New Fleet to select ships you'd like to form into a fleet. It's important to note that your fleet can't have infinite ships in it. There's a maximum capacity of 145 per fleet, and the ships will fill this limit quicker the larger the ship is. Remember, to form a fleet you'll require crew members to be at your CSS or starbase to man your fleets. If you don't have enough crew to form your desired fleet, you'll see an error. Our fleet is now made, and our next step is to fill it with the appropriate resources for our scanning journey ahead. We'll need fuel to warp across the galaxy, and we'll need food to scan. Click full refuel to max out your fuel and add food to your cargo. Make sure you don't completely fill your cargo with food, or you won't have room for the SDUs we'll be scanning for. We're ready to get out there and start scanning. First thing we'll need to do is undock our fleet from our CSS by clicking our fleet and pressing the undock button. Now that we're undocked, we can press the scan button to scan for SDUs in our current sector. You'll see that we were given current scan conditions, which were 0%, and the unfortunate news that we didn't receive any SDUs. That's because SDUs travel around Gallia in unpredictable patterns and are the most dense at the center of Gallia, where it's the most dangerous. When you venture out to the center of the map, you'll need to closely manage your fuel to ensure you don't run out in deep space, or you'll find yourself stranded. Always make sure you have enough fuel to get to your nearest starbase to fuel back up. Now let's talk about what scan conditions are. When you scan, the game will let you know the scan conditions of where you just scanned. Each sector has the ability to have a max of 7,200 SDUs shared by all players who are scanning at that area. If the sector has 10% scanning conditions, that means the max your fleet can gather is 10% of 7,200, which is 720. If your fleet has the capability to scan for 1,000 SDUs at once, but the scan conditions are 10%, you'll only get a max of 720. On the flip side of that, if you find a sector that's 20%, meaning there's 1,440 SDUs that can be scanned for, you'll get your full 1,000 SDUs as long as the sector isn't overpopulated by other scanners. If you're asking yourself how you know the max number of SDUs ships can scan for, you can check the Google Sheet down below, more specifically the W column. All you have to do is add the numbers in this column for all of the ships in your fleet to determine your personal max. Now that you have a better understanding of the process of scanning as well as how it works, let's go over some tips. These tips come directly from some of the best community scanners in Gallia. First, scanning fleets with large ships can be highly inefficient because you'll rarely reach the maximum SDU scan. For example, a Thimble BYOS tank ship has a maximum SDU capability of 5,227, but you would need a scan condition of above 70% to get that full 5,227. An expert scanner recommends a maximum fleet size of 1500 per scan, where you can get maximum output from sectors with just 20% scanning conditions. That same expert scanner let me know that they haven't seen scanning conditions above 60% before. Second, the center of the map is the most attractive, but can also get the most crowded. If you're having little luck at the center of the map, try traveling a bit outside of the center to avoid scanning where everyone else is. Number 3, if you're not using data runner ships to scan, consider using ships with the lowest fuel consumption and also the lowest food consumption per scan. You can find these stats by looking at the Google sheet I mentioned earlier. Number 4, if you find yourself in a low scanning condition sector, subwarp to other sectors while waiting for your scan to come off cooldown. This allows you to find a sector with better conditions while saving on fuel cost and being the most efficient with your time. And fifth and finally, if you want to get yourself a scanning fleet for less, consider checking out our newly released fleet rentals program at play.staratlas.com/rentals. You can rent entire fleets from other players for Atlas to expand your scanning operations. You're now on your way to becoming the most desired data runner in Gallia. Good luck on your journey.